we go. Preparing for group sessions. Let me. Okay, so I don't know if you guys have had a techniques class yet, but one of those, where is this going? Where are my notes? Okay. So I don't know if you guys have had your techniques class. You probably have, going along on basic counseling skills, but I'll just kind of go over those a little bit with you just to kind of refresh your memory. But when you guys are starting out doing group stuff, you will want to be sure that the very beginnings of the sessions is focusing on the members of the group and having them get to know each other. So these are basic skills. I know you guys know them, but I'll run through them. So the first one is open-ended questions, and those are super easy. And it's always in my mind when I try to do an open-ended question, I just think, is this something that they could say, I don't know to? So if I say, why would you do that? I don't know. That's a closed-ended question. So I really want to make sure that whatever question I ask people allows them to elaborate. And I tell my pre-practicum students this, semi-practicum, if you take these basic counseling skills, secretly practice with them on everybody you know. Don't let them know that, but like your spouse or your friends or your family members. And the more you get used to it, it'll become part of who you are as a counselor. And people will always want to talk to you because you are the one that is really doing this active listening. And sometimes I find that it becomes a little bit frustrating because everyone wants to talk to you about themselves because you're using these skills so well, but then they don't ask so many questions of you because they're having a fun time talking. So that's a good thing, but also it's you understand where I'm coming from on that. Okay, other things that you want to look for in the group is verbal or nonverbal cues. Maybe you have some kids that they don't really like each other so much, or a kid in the group feels like he may be bullied by a different group member. You may not know this before the group starts, but then you start to see these nonverbal cues as you're going along. So keep an eye out for those and make sure that you're picking up on that if there's a problem. Okay. Now, there's two other things that go along with your basic counseling skills, and those are reflection of meaning and reflection of feeling. And reflection is just basically like you're holding up a mirror to the client. They're saying something to you, and you are reflecting that back to them. And then, or you can do just a few single words. For instance, if they're saying, oh, I'm so angry and I'm so frustrated about this, you could say, so you're feeling angry. And I know that's a really simple thing to do, but it's perfect because if you say it back correctly, they will say yes. And you know that you're on the right track. But if they say, no, I'm not really feeling that way, I'm feeling, and then they'll share with you, that's good because you're making sure that you're connecting with the client. I recommend that you guys go and Google feeling words, good and bad feeling words, and then take that list and try to teach these kids as many feeling words as they can, because most of them just know like sad, mad, glad, and happy. That's all that they'll share with you. And I think it's just because they don't have a large repertoire of words. So maybe when you go in and you do some large group instruction, then you would say, okay, these are 5 feeling words that I want to teach you guys today. And that way you're able to give that to a lot of kids in your school without actually having to do all of that like in individual counseling. Next thing that you want to do is be sure that you're active listening. I see this a lot when people start doing their videos in practicum. And I know it's because they're nervous and they're trying to think, what am I going to say next? How am I going to make this video look good? But active listening is pretty simple. You're going to like sit in your chair, your shoulders are back, your body language is open, and your legs aren't crossed. You're not like down, kind of everything, pulled together. That you're being open and you're making them feel like, hey, she's really listening to me and she is excited about what she's doing. What's going on here? What is going on? Okay, paraphrasing, that's another one that I really like. It is just repeating back the material that the client has said to you. And that's just reflecting in your own words what's going on. And I like to use paraphrasing to just check out the accuracy of what I'm hearing and making sure that the client knows what I'm talking about. Okay, linking. This is one of the most important things that you can do as a group leader. And linking is when you take group members and you link them together in terms of similarities and in their strengths. And this helps them figure out kind of how they can work together. So if you say, okay, John, I really see that Sally, she's feeling some of that same frustration in her math class as you are. What do you guys think about that? And linking is perfect because if you have kids that are very, very different in a group and you want them to get along and you want them to feel like they're a cohesive group of people, linking is helpful to do that, especially if you have kids that don't know each other and are not really familiar with their story. And then self-disclosure, and this is something that I always focus on. A lot of times people will want to self-disclose, especially maybe to a teenage group. And you'll be like, back when I was a teenager, I remember that whatever. And most of the time, the client really doesn't want to hear anything about you unless it is super, super relevant. So I always say when you self-disclose, think, is this actually going to be helpful to them if I tell them that? And then why do I feel like this is important, something to say to them? All right. So let's go over to our friend Maslow, and he has his hierarchy of needs. And I know that you guys have seen this probably in your teaching classes. It's like Maslow never goes away. His hierarchy is always there. And these are some things that you need to make sure that they are getting in the group. And the first one is love and belonging. We're social creatures. We like to interact with each other. And this level on his hierarchy outlines the needs for friendship, for intimacy, for family, and love. And we have this great ability to give love and to receive love. And if you are able to do that in a group, the kids are going to feel like they belong and they're going to feel like they're really a part of what's happening. So I would focus on that one. And then I would also focus on the esteem, self-esteem. And for self-esteem, everybody wants to be recognized. They want to have status. They want to feel like they are really respected. And so once they feel this love and belonging, then they're going to try to start looking for this esteem where they feel good about themselves. So these kids, they need respect from the other people in the group, and they also need some respect from you. And sometimes you'll have to model this for them so they'll know what it looks like. But the more you work on these respect and feeling good about yourself, you're going to see the confidence of your kids go. You're going to see that they're feeling more confident. They're going to feel independent. And it's kind of like a sense of freedom that, hey, I belong somewhere and people care about me. So at the very top of Maslow's pyramid, we have self-actualization. And that's where we realize our full potential. We're striving to be the very best person that we can possibly be. Self-actualization is a lifelong thing. You guys are going through that now as you're working on your graduate degree. Once you finish the graduate degree, you're going to be working really hard on becoming an amazing counselor. And it just keeps going and going. So self-actualization, the tip of the iceberg, it never stops. Okay, so let's go back. Thinking about, we're starting our groups, what are they going to look like? So the first and second session of the group, that is where you are going to put all of the rules in place. So you're explaining to them, here's where we're going to meet. We're going to meet in this classroom. When we talk, you raise your hand, or maybe you have a talking stick that you can send around, for people have to have that before they can speak in the group. All of your basic ideas and how you want the group, this is the time that you're going to want to do this. It's nice for you to explain to them good communication skills and good self-disclosure skills. So here you're going to talk about I statements. You're going to talk about the feeling words on that Google sheet that I talked about maybe doing, acknowledging anxiety or uncertainty, because a lot of times these kids will come into the group and they're like, why am I here? Who are these people? Especially in high school. I don't know who these people are. So saying, hey, I bet a lot of you feel anxious coming to group today. Let's talk a little bit about who's feeling anxious, who feels kind of nervous and out of sorts in this group. And you'll find a lot of times that the kids will feel better that you actually brought that up and that they don't have to be nervous. So there's some different icebreakers that you can use. I think that one, I know this is a terrible one because people do it all the time, but it's a helpful one, is where you go around the group and they will say their name and then they'll disclose something about themselves. So you're going around the circle. I'm Poppy. I really like to go for walks with my dog Finn. And that's me. And then so the next person will say who they are and they'll have to go, this is Poppy. She likes her dog Finn. I'm Jan. I like to, do ballet. And if you are having trouble with the kids starting with the group, you can say, okay, whoever volunteers next only has to do these first 3 names. And that kind of helps people not want to be the guy at the very end because they don't want to have to remember like everyone in the entire group. So that's one, it's an oldie, but a goodie. Now, another one is card trick. This is kind of fun. You get a deck of cards, and if they draw a blue card, you can say, tell me about a time when you felt sad. Or if they drew a queen, you could say, hey, if you were a queen for the day, what would you do? Now, on this roll the dice, I found these, and I didn't put the picture up here, but they were story dice. And when you roll them, it'll say like 2 things, and you have to make up a story about yourself using those 2 different things. And I thought that's neat. I want to buy me a pair of those. So that's an idea for you. You guys can go and Google this stuff. It's tons of icebreakers out there. So you don't even have to, buy a book or anything like that. You can just go check it out and look at it. Okay, so back to the initial part of the group when we're talking about this. Hang on, my computer is low on disk space. Okay. In that first session, talking about group information. Okay, we're going to meet here in this classroom. We're going to meet for 45 minutes from 11 to 11:45 on Tuesdays. I will either send a note to the teacher for you to come down to me, or you will just know that you can tell your teacher quietly, hey, it's almost 11 o'clock. I need to go down to Dr. Moon's office for that. So they understand what the structure is going to be. Then give them a summary of what group work is like. So talking about those communication skills, but then also say, this is what's going to happen. We're going to focus on organizational skills. This first week, we're going to talk about problems that you may be having in being organized. Next week, we're going to talk about specific strategies and maybe make a folder or something that you guys can take with you back to class and use as a reference, and just have those all set out so the kids know what to expect. And then the structure of the session. How does it open? What are you doing during the working and processing part? And then at the closing. And you can talk about ground rules. And for kids that are in high school, working on the ground rules is a nice thing because it allows them to maybe make up their own set of what's our group going to be like. What kind of things are we all going to be able to agree on? And here's an example that you can give, an analogy of a swimming pool. Okay, if you have everybody over at your house at the pool, you want them to feel safe, and you want your kids to feel safe in the group. So you would say, okay, we're here at the pool. We want to have these rules to be safe. What are some ideas of rules that you might have? And that may be only one person on the diving board at a time, or no roughhousing, which could be translated into, hey, everyone should be respectful. They shouldn't, play around in the group. So it's helpful if you have your group members write these on a blackboard or a notepad. You can maybe have one of those giant sticky notes up there and have a kid write down all of the ideas. And then at the end, you can select a few rules that you think will be helpful with your group. But a lot of times with the older kids, you want them to feel like this group is something that they have made up to deal with themselves. Okay, so confidentiality, I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but the group members need to be upfront as to whether they're going to socialize outside of the classroom. Or if you're in a community mental health setting. Say that you were doing a group on a really personal topic, maybe incest or sexual abuse, something like that, and you would want the kids, say that they saw each other in Walmart, and they're like, oh, hi, Helen, how are you? And the other kids with their friends, and they're like, how do you know that person? Well, you don't want them to have to say, oh, we're in a sexual assault group together, because maybe they don't want to share that with other people. So come up with a rule like that. How are we going to deal with each other if we see each other together? Or maybe some group members decide that they're going to start eating lunch together, and they're just a diverse group of kids, and someone's like, why are they always eating lunch together now? Do they want to share that information, which is something. Okay, so here's some optional ground rules that you can have. If you have an open group where kids can kind of revolve through it, the first thing you could say is, okay, if you're going to join our group, you have to try out the group for at least 3 sessions, because 3 sessions is, the first session is not really a good session because everyone's anxious and they're very nervous and they don't know what the structure is. So sometimes that one is not the best. And then the second, they're trying to start getting towards this working stage. And the third time they're actually really doing some work on that. So encourage them, stay at least 3 sessions. And with our smaller groups, with our elementary groups, that's not so much of an issue as it would be with tween groups. But then the last part is they have to say goodbye. So say that they are doing the 3 times and they just don't like it, it's not going to work out for them and they want to leave. Being there and just saying goodbye to the other group members helps them get closure. And maybe a kid doesn't want to come back to the group. Maybe Sue is always being mean to them or saying nasty things about them. And they're just like, I don't want to be in the group. And the reason is because of Sue, but they haven't told you, the group leader. This is a good way to keep kids from like falling out of the group is, okay, let me talk to you privately before you say goodbye. What are some reasons that you're leaving? And if they share that with you, I'm having trouble with this other student, maybe you can kind of nip that in the bud and you can keep them in the group that you really want them to stay in. All right, so closing the first session, you can ask a lot of questions to see how effective your session was. So as you go around and you close, you say, what did you like most about this session? What's different? Like you thought that you were going to come to group. What were your thoughts that were going to happen? And then how is that alike, or how is that different from what you were thinking about? Or what'd you learn from the group today? I think the hardest thing for me with group is making sure that I keep everything on a timetable, because say that you do the opening part and everyone's real chatty and they want to share a lot of stuff. And then now, it's 11:30 and then you haven't even done the main activity yet. And then you still want to close and you still want to process with them. It's hard to keep on schedule. So do your very, very best. Maybe have a kid that's going to be your timekeeper. And if they're going around and saying something about themselves, you've got 15 seconds to share this with us. So it moves quickly and it doesn't affect your time. A testy group member. And I remember when I was working with adolescents in a drug treatment program, this was something that always would happen at the very beginning. They would try to test you as the leader of the group. So for instance, I'll be like, well, okay, we're going to share about this. And they'll be like, I'm not going to do it. What are you going to do about it? And then you have to be like, I can't get upset because I need to facilitate this group and try to help this kid to open up. But I also understand that they're very angry and they don't want to be here because it's involuntary. So you got to work on yourself as a group leader. Think about, before you start a group, what do I want out of this? What are my limits? How am I going to set those? And how am I going to send a message to the other kids in the group that I'm keeping them safe, but I'm also working with this particular student to make them feel safe as well. It's a challenge. Doing groups, especially with adolescents, is a bit of a challenge. But, hey, that's part of why you're going to be a counselor. Okay, so here's the third session. And this is when it's a good time to start working on individual goals and with group goals. What are you expecting to get out of this? So one of the things that you can do is give them some note cards and have them write down the goals that they want coming out of the group. For instance, my kids that were in the adolescent treatment center, we're focusing on moving them on and getting them out of that situation, that we want them to move on with their future. So maybe their goals in the group would be to learn more about each other and to practice friendship skills. But their personal goal would be, moving towards liking myself a little bit more. So we'll have both of those goals, and it's a good time for, writing stuff down. I'm all about that because it makes something tangible that was up in your head and now it's tangible. Here's some questions that you could ask them about their goal. What's your goal? How are you going to know when you've achieved it? And goal setting, it doesn't have to be limited to just these beginning sessions. Goals are something that continue to be worked on throughout the time that they're there. And it's a good idea to maybe in the middle of your groups to stop one time and just say, hey, remember those goals that we wrote down at the beginning? Now that I'm thinking about them, how are you doing? Are we getting close to that? Or are we helping you do what you had wanted to do? Or do we need to revise those and do something a little bit different? All right, almost done, guys. The fourth session is a good time for you to look at kind of self-actualization. And you can talk about, what is this? What is this right here? Look at that. I use the Canva, and I put over here, I put my notes in the design, but I never switched it over here. So I have one of those things, where people didn't type in the words on that. So I'll need to fix that. But self-actualization, that's when we're moving towards who we are and trying to continue that personal growth. So these are just a few activities that you could use if you wanted to getting started. So you've got little kids coming in, they've got a lot of energy. So getting started, you could do a stretch exercise where we move, or you could do a game with motions to kind of get all of that out. Check in, are you here, not here? What are your weekly highs and lows? I love Magic Wand, and I have my Magic Wand from Harry Potter World over here. Magic Wand kind of goes along with that magic question, what would things be like if you had a magic wand? I really like this one. This is a good thing to use with small kids all the way up to big kids. So if you could magically see yourself in the future, what would it look like? Or if you could fix everything with your family, what would your family look like? And this is one that you can just kind of pop out if you're stuck and you're like, we've got extra time, I'm not exactly sure what to do with it. Pull out the magic wand. Always a winner. And then closing the session, just ask the kids, what's going on? What did you learn? How is this helpful? And how is it going to make you more successful as a person? All right. So that was our exciting lecture